Welcome to EFFector from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. You're listening to an audio companion to our email newsletter, keeping you on the cutting edge of digital rights issues. I'm Christian Romero.
And I'm Hudson Hongo. Later, we'll be talking to Thorin Klosowski, security and privacy activist at EFF, about Opt Out October, our month-long celebration of small tasks to protect your privacy. We'll also let you know about some of the upcoming opportunities to connect with EFF. But first, let's cover this week's top stories with the EFFector News Quiz. All right. This week, many of the stories in EFFector are security related, which I think feels like on topic for October.
Yeah, it's October Cybersecurity Month. Is that's the shtick?
I mean, I'm just, it's like, if you're thinking about spooky and scary things, I think like security threats are a good one to consider,
I didn't tie it in like that, but that's totally right. Yeah.
I mean, there's like a couple like, sort of like cyber thriller horror movies that like have like a tech theme, but I don't know that how many of them are just like, oh, like you're hacked. It's like, like a ghost is hacking you, right? Or, there's a conspiracy. But I don't know how many of them are just like, well, the third party you trusted with your data is unreliable, and now the worst bad actors have it in their hands.
Yeah, truly horrifying. Perfect for October, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you a question about some stories that we cover in EFFector this week. The first question. All right. What Bluetooth tracking devices did researchers recently find have troubling security flaws?
These are the tile trackers, right? The ones that are really similar to like the Apple AirTags?
That's right. You got it. Yeah, there was a paper came out where researchers found that there were just like what seemed like pretty significant security flaws with the tile devices broadcasting unencrypted unique identifiers, which is not good. I believe that the company that owns Tile, Life360, told Wired that they had made unspecified number of improvements to their devices after the report came out, but I don't think we know what those alleged improvements are.
What a great way to build trust. Just like we made improvements. Yay, hooray.
Right. And I think one of the big takeaways that we've mentioned a lot when talking about devices like these is that it's not really possible to make an anti-theft device that secretly only can tell the owner without also making it like a pretty troubling stalking tool. It's like the same. I don't think there's like a technical solution to that problem.
Yeah. These are just really tricky devices. I see all the use cases for them, and then all the negative use cases. And it's just like, I don't know. They're tough.
Okay. Another actually really troubling story. This is a wild one. So EFF recently obtained documents proving that a license plate search by police for a missing person was actually part of an abortion investigation. In what state did this occur?
Yeah, this was the Texas Sheriff's Office, right?
That's correct. I would have also accepted pretty much any state because the license plate search was, of course, nationwide. It ended up searching 83,000 flock ALPR cameras. And for some background, it's like when the story first came out in May, right? All that was really known was from the ALPR audit logs. And it showed that official in Texas had searched all of these license plate reader cameras, these vehicle tracking cameras around the country. And the reason they provided basically just said abortion, right? And then after this came out, both the sheriff's office associated with this investigation and the ALPR company Flock went on a real media offensive claiming that this was not an abortion investigation. This was about a missing person. Her family was worried about her health. Recently, we got our hands on more documents about the specifics of what happened, and it was originally being looked at as a quote unquote death investigation of a fetus. So it was just absolutely what was being said the entire time. And really upsetting. I mean, it just makes it even worse, right? That like not only can this technology be used for purposes like this, but that the transparency mechanisms are not particularly strong. And in fact, like the audit logs they have right now just might have a single word, right, which may or may not be true. And then we have to hope or use public records requests to find out what actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, we push back so much on this type of like government surveillance, and it's just like it's so ripe for abuse, It just so easy
Yeah.
for law enforcement to just decide they randomly want to search something, and it's so hard to keep them accountable for sure. This is a spooky story to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the particular things that many people have looked into following it was, right, there's like various states have prohibitions of sharing this kind of data out of state at all or for the purposes of abortion investigations. And it seemed like this was happening. And I think that that's like just at a very basic level of furthering like illegal data sharing. But as you mentioned, this control issue is very is very important because even if this is like assuming that everybody's at least even trying to abide by the law, there's also, of course, anybody who has access to this kind of search could abuse it, right? It's the insider threat problem. And in fact, ultimately, I believe the sheriff's office, in this case, the sheriff himself was recently arrested for a series of unrelated crimes, which just goes to show it's an extremely powerful technology. It's hard to imagine who can be trusted with it because police have not exactly proven that they can be.
Yeah, definitely not. And like, I don't know why it just hit me. Can you imagine like 83,000 cameras is what was searched? Like I knew that license plate readers are just like ubiquitous at this point. They're everywhere. But when you put it like that 83,000 number, and that's not even just all of them, it's kind of shocking to just hear how far reaching this surveillance is. And like, it's just everywhere. I was driving down the street and I was like, oh, that is totally a flock camera. And like,
Yeah.
I just noticed it out of nowhere. And now I got to check the Atlas of Surveillance to see if it's on there.
Not a bad idea. All right. Third question, another security one. What country is once again demanding that Apple create a backdoor into its encrypted backup servers?
This continues to be the UK, right?
That's correct. Right. So originally in January, it was learned because I believe there's like associated gag mechanisms that the UK was demanding a backdoor into the encrypted iCloud services. And subsequently, Apple just disabled their advanced data protection, their encrypted cloud backup feature in all of the UK. And there was some back and forth. The US officials said that they were pushing back on this and that the UK had sort of rescinded this order or something, this demand. But it came out very recently that, reportedly the UK has reissued this demand, but now is just limiting it to users in the UK, which is not any better. It's like a backdoor into encryption. The goal, the idea, the dream is always, we're going to create some sort of secret passage that only the good guys can go through. But of course, that's just not how it works.
Yeah. And like, if you interact with anyone that's not in the UK, like, oh, aren't you going to get access to their stuff too? Like, it doesn't work. Doesn't make sense. It's crazy how much we have to beat this drum every time someone's like, what are you guys working on lately? Like, in the top 3 is always, we're fighting governments trying to get backdoors into encryption. Like, it's just same fight over and over. When will they learn?
It's true. And I think that's just going to be maybe perennial. I mean, you understand the terrible appeal that this sort of information has to a government, and maybe why these officials might be reluctant to understanding the simple truth that you can't create a secret passage that only you can go through. All right. Well, You did great, Christian. Now let's talk to Thorin even more about security in October. Hi, Thorin. Thanks for making the time to talk.
Yeah, you bet.
So first, what is Opt-out October?
Opt-out October is a series of small tips that people can take each day that helps them kind of throw sand in the gears of the big tech companies and take back small bits of privacy, like one day at a time.
Yeah, it's a lot to sort of take on all at once, to think about as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
And I get the sense that this campaign is partially a response to the idea that sometimes called privacy nihilism. That is the feeling that there's nothing we can do to control our data. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And I think it's easy to just feel overwhelmed by this stuff. And this is a way to kind of break it down into small little tasks that you can do every day and accomplish a lot. Like by the end of it, you will have taken back a considerable amount of your privacy.
Okay. So a whole month, right? One sort of good thing to do a day. I saw the first tip we have and put up on October 1st was about establishing good data hygiene with just a couple security fundamentals. What are those fundamentals?
Basically, unique passwords everywhere and two-factor authentication. So for most people, that means a password manager. If you've never used one before, it's a really good place to start. It makes it so things like data breaches or someone getting into your account has a significantly less damage to the rest of your online life. Two-factor authentication is just kind of the second part of that. If you've ever gotten one of those codes in the mail, codes in email or like through your phone that like you have to log in after putting in your password, that's what two-factor authentication is. It just makes it so all of your online identity is a little bit safer, more secure. Starts us off on a good baseline, basically.
Yeah, a good baseline. And then on top of that, some of the first tips we've talked about, many of them relate to surveillance advertising. That is the collection of our personal data for advertising purposes. What are some of the ways that this data is collected, and how can we protect our own data?
Yeah, it kind of gets collected basically everything you do online. There's some sort of breadcrumb from what you're doing, whether it's browsing or whether it's the phones on your app and what you're doing in them. Advertising is the kind of the main glue for a lot of this, where if you have like you're playing games on your phone that has a little ad in it every once in a while, that's collecting data about your location, about kind of what you're doing there, and it all turns into this big behavioral thing to show ads mostly. That's the main kind of driver and the main like end goal. Yeah, so you can disable your ad tracking on your iPhone and Android. On iPhone, it's the oddly worded mouthful allow apps to ask to track, and on Android you can just delete your advertising ID. And what that does, each phone has its kind of like gobbledygook number of things that is an ad identifier, and you can remove that and it makes it much harder to kind of track you across things.
So that's one point. Another point is in the browser, like you mentioned, just on a desktop, on your phone, wherever, there's in-browser tracking. What are some ways that we can sort of block those?
Well, thankfully, EFF makes a tool called Privacy Badger, which you can install, and it takes care of all of that for you. It's delightful. It's a little badger. It's a cute little icon. And once it's set up, you have to do like no thinking whatsoever. You can just use it.
Well, because we talked about there's like basically so many different vectors through which they get this information, I think it makes sense that we have a tip every day of this month to talk about ways that you can block it, though I think those two that we talked about are two really good ones. And just to give a sense of sort of this ecosystem, another thing that I wanted to make sure we talked about was data brokers. That is some of the actors who end up holding a lot of this information. I know one of our tips relates to requesting data from data brokers and what they hold on you. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones, actually, because I think it's a really great way to show people what it actually looks like for a company to hold all of your data. So we walk you through how to request your information from a couple different options. And in at least 45 days, they're required to give you a copy of whatever data they have about you. That's only required in certain states, but most of these data brokers are so gigantic, I have found they tend to send it to you regardless of where you live. And what you'll get is a gigantic spreadsheet that shows I mean, some of them you'll have addresses going back decades. I've found my high school email address from Prodigy was in one of them, like prodigy.net. They still had my email address from that. Other times you'll find marketing profiles, which are sometimes fun. They take a little bit of like effort to figure out what they are showing you, because they usually use like a strange rating scale that they don't tell you how to read. But you'll find like that the most minute things that you do are tracked and figure out a marketing profile. My personal favorite that I've ever found is that I am a high fiber food lover, apparently. So like it gets that tiny. It's that like specific, and it's kind of delightful and scary at the same time. It's often very wrong, also, which is sort of one of the things that you can kind of learn is that all like when you take all of these tips and you actually do all of them, it does really kind of screw up the marketing profile. I think the most like obvious evidence of that for me is that it often doesn't recognize that I am a avid computer user. It like will clock me as like a not big computer guy, which is I work at EFF. It's a very wrong read on like what I do. So it's kind of fun to see those. To like request it now and then maybe in a year do it again and kind of see what you have done and like what has kind of changed that profile.
So not just a security and privacy tip, but also one of entertainment.
Yeah, unless you find something kind of horrifying and scary, in which case it's less so. But
yeah, I mean, another type of data that's collected that is scary that I wanted to talk about was location data. What are some of the ways that this is collected, and what are some of the ways that we can prevent it being collected?
Yeah, the main like vector for collecting it is through apps, and a lot of apps ask for location data without really needing to use it to be functional. Even some that you might think require it, like Uber or food delivery apps, you can just enter in an address. They don't actually need your location. And that gets sold to data brokers and advertisers, which can then be purchased by other data brokers and advertisers or by the government. And it's just kind of a way to, like, your location is pretty specific to you. It's specific to what you do. And it's pretty easy to kind of figure out a lot of things about you based on where you are throughout the day, whether that's your house, your workplace, where you shop, where you get healthcare, the whole gamut. I mean, your whole life can kind of be pretty easily deciphered through where you're at.
So limiting when apps can collect that data and probably removing ones that don't need that data is a good way to control that.
Yeah, you can kind of go through your phone's privacy permissions and set different settings for each app. Sometimes you can cut it off completely without really affecting the app's day-to-day use. You can also usually set it to be not precise. Both operating systems have different terms for this, but you can make it so instead of having a GPS like you would like your car, your mapping app following you exactly where you are, it can kind of zoom out to almost more of a zip code or neighborhood level. So that can be handy for something like weather. If you move around a lot, I actually just set my weather for my zip code, but if I was someone who left the house more often than I do, I would be more likely to kind of turn that on for my location still. But yeah, it's surprising. To me, it's often surprising how little apps actually need your location. There are just a handful that like really need that precise location, like navigation. That's kind of the main one. Some of the health and fitness stuff you would need, kind of for the same reason of it, navigation stuff. But most of them don't need that granular of access.
Great. So where can people go to follow along with Opt Out October and get all of EFF's tips?
Yeah, if you go to EFF.org, you will find all of our tips and all the Opt Out October stuff. It's all in one gigantic blog post that's getting longer and longer every day, with a big table of the contents at the top. So you can at least kind of jump to where you need to be.
Finally, I wanted to collect a little data myself. So what apps were you surprised to find you downloaded onto your phone?
It's almost always some random conference thing or like a hotel thing that you can't, like, you can't access hotel Wi-Fi unless you use their dumb app, or like
sure.
a conference thing. It's always stuff like that. And I do my best to delete them afterwards, but you're travel brained and forget. So it's mostly travel stuff.
So even privacy guru Thorne himself needs to do a regular sort of checkup to make sure that he doesn't have, do they have any good names? Or is it always just like Marriott Access?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always delete the airline ones immediately after flying too. I don't know why. It's just like I don't want them on my phone.
Right. It just feels like, why do I have 5, 6? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for taking the time, Thorin. And now, events. Christian, what opportunities to connect with EFF are coming up?
Yeah, well, supporters in Portland, Oregon can actually hang out with you and I, Hudson, on October 25th for a speakeasy meetup. We're also hosting a speakeasy in New York a week before on October 18th. Both of these are going to be a fun, casual gathering where you can grab some drinks and meet EFF staff and your fellow Digital Freedom supporters. Current EFF supporters can find an invite in their inbox or reach out to events at EFF.org for more details. And on October 27th through the 29th, we'll be back at TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco. You can find us in the expo hall where we'll be chatting with folks about the latest in the fight for privacy and free expression online. And finally, legal internship applications are now open until November 1st for the spring 2026 intern class. Visit the opportunities page under the About section of EFF.org to learn more. And my apologies if you're just hearing meowing in the background of all of that.
I think that's a real bonus. I feel like all sort of announcements, information would be preferable if I heard just sort of little chirps or meows.
She's a chirpy girl. I don't know. And all of her kittens are playing right now too. So
all of her kittens?
Yeah.
How many kittens?
I can show you there's 4 kittens with her. No one's going to be able to see this, but you can see a bunch of kittens.
Oh, wow. This is actually the ideal way. I really like animals and cats, but I'm incredibly allergic to them. So this is sort of the ideal format for me to interact with a cat.
Yeah, if you ever came to my place, you would just explode because there's so many.
It is like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Christian. That'll be it for this week's EFFector Audio Companion. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. And thank you, kitty cats, for chirping.